should totally be learning this, yes. But when I plug this problem into AI, it can solve it. So how valuable is that skill set? Do you know what I mean? Like it's in the back of your head. Eventually, we're not going to need to know how to do this.
I think of it kind of like calculators.
Where, oh, where are you tonight? Why did you leave me in red on my phone? I searched the world over and thought I found true love. You met an AI and poof, you was gone.
Welcome to You Teach the Machines. What's up, Oscar?
Doing good. I love the intro.
You love the intro?
Guess what?
Amazing.
It's AI generated.
Really?
Yeah, man.
That's very impressive.
Fancy.
I was trying to figure out voice generation with AI the other day, and my conclusion was it's a little bit harder than to get that to work than the chatbots.
Well, go to Udio, 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 and in 30 minutes, as a crusty middle-aged dude, you can write some lyrics, tweak some parameters, and generate what I just played.
Wow.
Folky robot love song.
But those are human. Those are my lyrics. Those are human lyrics. I taught the machine to sing that song. You teach the machine. That's the title of the podcast. Oscar, would you introduce yourself?
My name is Oscar Wilmering. I am a mechanical engineering major at Northeastern University with a minor in design. I'm a fourth year. I will be graduating in 4.5 years, so I have one semester after this one left. And yeah, I've done 2 co-ops at Northeastern. It's a program where you work for 6 months in a position relating to your major. Very cool.
And as always, Mary Jane, who are you?
I'm Mary Jane. I'm a senior at Colby College in my last semester of school, and I'm a computational biology and statistics double major.
What I want to point out is that our first episode was with Lucy, who's a psych major. So the good news is we didn't start out with like straight up hardcore STEM people. Because that's something I hear all the time. Like, oh, I'm not technical. I don't understand AI, or I'm not technical. I don't use AI. But that's not the case. Really, that's not how it really works.
Dude, some of my humanities major friends are using it more than I am in a lot of different ways. So I agree with you. We were talking about, when I was outlining the premise of the show, how we feel like undergraduates are the primary users of AI. And Oscar, you push back against that a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. At my second co-op, I worked at a startup. They were making a new kind of hot water heater, a heat pump hot water heater. And it was a fairly young team of people in their 30s and 40s, and they definitely encouraged the use of AI a lot.
Cool.
About half of the team was doing a lot of coding, and in today's industry, if you are doing any sort of computer science and you're not using AI, you're actively making your job harder, and it's just an enormous tool for coding.
Yeah, I agree. Were they using it in other ways?
Yeah. It's not as helpful, but it's definitely still very helpful for the kind of mechanical engineering and design side of things. It can be good for, I'm trying to think of a good example of a time I used it. Say I am designing something and I need a specific spring. I did this before at my last company, and it was a very specific kind of spring that pulls in a certain direction with a certain amount of force. And I kind of knew it existed, but I didn't know what it was called, and I had spent a bunch of time searching for it online and couldn't find it. So I plugged all of the different descriptors, and I described what it was like to the AI, and then immediately I was using ChatGPT, and it just spat out the type of spring that it was, and then I searched that name, and then it tells me what it is. It can be really good for that. They kind of describe something, even movies sometimes. If you can't think of a movie, and you just describe scenes or characters, it can figure out what you're talking about.
Cool.
What kind of spring was it?
It was a constant force spring. So it was a very, very long coil, and you pull it out. It's like a tape measure.
Ah, okay.
And the more you pull the spring out, the force of the spring doesn't change, which is very different than most springs.
Cool.
Huh.
Cool.
I'm very curious about that. Independent of AI, I'm gonna I'm in my world. I'm gonna look around for constant force springs. There's probably some that I don't even think about.
There's another name for it, but I would have to ask ChatGPT again.
Which is so. When we talked to Lucy, psych major at Colby last episode, I touched on one of the fears of people like me that AI will encourage de-skilling. That you'll just not have to know things because there's AI, and You just confirmed my deepest fear, Oscar. No, I'm joking, because that's happened with the internet, and frankly, like that happened with books when, I think with books, you'd remember stuff because it was such a pain in the butt to actually go get the book and look it up again. So you're like, all right, I got to remember this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think so Lucy sort of talked about it being like a political skill to learn how to use AI, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind. And your point about people that you worked with using it in their coding, the idea that if you aren't using it, then you're just going to be a lot less productive and slower and efficient than other people that are just using AI for like basic parts of code or debugging. It's just going to speed up the way that we do things. And I think supplement in a lot of cases.
As a mechanical engineer, I do not, like, a part of my career is not necessarily coding. Like, that's not the biggest part of the career. But
Sure.
Exclusively because of AI, I've been able to write functional code in entirely new coding languages that I've never even looked up a YouTube tutorial for, or a book, or learned in class. That has been super helpful for projects that I would have never been able to do otherwise.
Yeah. It like opens up that world to more interdisciplinary computer science, which is like the way that the world is going. Like you can use CS in any field, and that means that you don't have to have been a CS major or an expert in it in order to like use technology and use computers in the work that you're doing.
Exactly.
Right. But I think that is scary to people whose entire like career and education was based on the concept that there is a benefit in being the person that knows how to do that coding. And so if you don't like need to go through years of school to like have a basic understanding of programming, then I think that there's some fear. And this, like, we can talk about how like the internet replaced some of this, and like just like science evolving replaces some of this. We've talked about it a lot, but you have people who are pushing back against AI because it makes things more accessible to the people that aren't experts and the people that didn't have to like spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a degree in this stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. Like I see it a lot with I have a lot of friends that are there's always people that I know that are looking for co-ops, this like 6-month work leave, and a lot of them are in CS, and CS is notoriously like they apply to hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and it's oftentimes they don't get one, or they have to move their co-op search to the next semester and it rolls over, and it's a very, very stressful field to find jobs in compared to almost any other field. It's a very saturated field as well.
Do you think that's because of the change in the last 3 years?
I think it definitely contributes. I'm definitely no expert on like the history of like how hard it has been to find jobs in CS. But I would argue that Meta has already, I've seen headlines of they're already trying to replace like software developer jobs with AI agents is, I think, the word they're using.
Yeah. Well, I'll share some perspective. And, we're in a moment right now where there's the potential for some economic contraction in different industries. There's change that's been introduced to the interaction between labor and capital and management by AI, which is a form of automation. So there's a bunch of different factors that could be coming into play. But, in my work at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia over 17 years, up until last November, we spent an inordinate amount of time and energy working to attract computer science majors into healthcare, which is different than attracting them into, a high-paying tech job or into a finance company, a high-paying tech job in a finance company. So, maybe there's a confounder there because not that many computer science students wanted to go to work for an academic medical center in pediatrics, right? But we were doing, people at Chopper still doing some amazing work. So historically, from my perspective, it was a very in-demand major, again, in health. And to your point, Mary Jane, that could have been also because, we were trying to sort of force this merge, this multidisciplinary interaction between computer science and biomedical research. But hearing from you, Oscar, that CS students at Northeastern are having a hard time finding jobs, that's like new to me and mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Has that been the case like for your time there, your 4 years there?
I've definitely heard of it getting better and worse, but for the most part, it's been a problem.
So getting worse over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think part of it too is like the CS, like the market for jobs, I think ebbs and flows quite a bit. There are phases where like the FANG companies, the enormous tech companies, will do massive layoffs and then hire back later.
Sure.
So I think,
and we've definitely been in that.
I think that
in that sort of more of a downturn phase in terms of big tech companies are not in an expansion mode when it comes to their businesses, programmers, that sort of thing. I mean, you just take what Musk did with Twitter, and starting about 3 years ago, he shit canned a huge amount of the Twitter workforce. That put more supply on the market. The layoffs at Meta, et cetera, that could be compounded, accelerated by, the push for automation, which, previously only happened in the physical industries, right? It was only physical robots that made things, automating stuff. And now you have AI robots automating knowledge work.
Yeah.
Okay, to get away from broad strokes and focus a little bit back on like what it's like as a student at Northeastern, how has AI affected the way that you do school, the way that you learn? And like, do you use it in your everyday life, Oscar, or do you know people around you at Northeastern who do?
I absolutely use AI in my everyday life. I have ChatGPT open right now, and I had 5 different conversations with it yesterday. Mostly quick questions. Like one of them was like NyQuil sleep quality impact, because I'm a little over a sickness, and I was like, is NyQuil gonna mess up my sleep quality? And ChatGPT said probably. But in terms of like helping for school, absolutely. I think part of it depends on the type of class that I'm taking. Early on, it didn't do very well with math at all in any form. But now it's gotten much better, and it can really lay out a problem really well. And one of the biggest benefits is, say the professor, I'm reviewing my notes, and there's a specific math problem that the professor solved. I can just plug that I didn't understand in my notes. I can plug that math problem into ChatGPT. It can do it itself, and then say it did the same step that I still don't understand. It did one thing from step 3 to 4 that I don't get. I can just say, explain step 3 to 4 in more detail, and it will break it down for me in a way that is very helpful. On the flip side, I will say some classes, it's just not helpful whatsoever. Like it just
like what kind of class?
Let me think of a good example. When I did Calc 3, it really was not helpful, partially because the math was just very like not extremely like hard operations, but very long and lots of steps. So its consistency can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. Like it still does make some of the same mistakes humans would make, like carrying a zero.
Like when there's that many steps, sure, it'll get like tripped up in one little step, and that prevents your outcome from being right.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
But I'm doing a class right now called Measurements and Analysis, which is about taking measurements and how to conduct experiments. And AI is so good at it. Like a lot of the homework problems and a lot of just the problems that are even going to show up on exams are word problems about how to do things. And ChatGPT's hit rate on correct answers for that class is so high. Yeah. And that's a little bit scary in the sense that it's like, if I just implanted ChatGPT in my brain, I could guarantee I'd get an A in that class.
I have a question about like how you learn. So in that class, you're seeing that ChatGPT can take a word problem and either just spit out the discrete answer or explain how it gets to that answer. It can reason through it. That means it's been taught by a lot of example, training and data that, to do those kinds of problems or to solve those kinds of problems. When you're working with it in that class, because you don't have GPT in your brain, how does it help you learn?
One thing that it can do is break a complex topic into topics that are relevant to the class. So like the other day in Measurements and Analysis, we were learning about chi-squared values, and it's a value for statistics. And there's a ton of applications for it. But in the class, we were just learning about a specific application of it and guiding ChatGPT to really focus in and learn about that one part can be really helpful.
Yeah.
But
I also think that no, that's good. If you have a professor who maybe like brushes past a topic in the notes, I think that the concept of like using it to break down a step and maybe teach you in a different way is like super valuable, especially if like maybe a certain teacher isn't like, the way they teach a topic isn't clicking in your brain.
Yeah. But I think part of what you're getting at too is I totally agree. Like the temptation, and it does definitely happen, of like doing measurements and analysis homework and there's a word problem, you can plug that word problem into ChatGPT and then rephrase the answer. And it's very easy to not internalize what is actually being taught there.
Right.
Yeah.
You could also be learning that you probably shouldn't apply to any jobs that have measurement and analysis in the title.
Yeah.
because AI is going to replace that.
Yeah.
That's like sort of the push and pull that I've had where I'm like, okay, I should totally be learning this, yes. But when I plug this problem into AI, it can solve it. So how valuable is that skill set? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird, like, in the back of your head, like, eventually we're not going to need to know how to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think of it kind of like calculators a little bit, in the sense that when in elementary school, it's like, you're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket. And now, look at me now, I can't do long division, but it has never impacted me in my entire life.
Right.
Right. What?
But when it comes to like just like the raw experience of learning, there obviously is value in teaching kids long division and multiplication because of just the effort that it takes to learn that kind of stuff. I don't know. Is it worthwhile?
I mean, there is a biological imperative to form new connections in your brain, right? And when you exercise your brain by doing long division, you're forming new connections. Now, as soon as you get your TI 60,
yeah.
TI 84.
TI 84. Back in my day, it was the 60, and we were happy to have it. Right? But when you get your TI 84, maybe those synapses and connections in your brain atrophy and go away. So why did you need to form them in the first place? But that's an interesting question, and something that we'll keep coming back to. It's like, okay, Mary Jane, you use the phrase raw learning, right? Like raw learning, sort of learning for the sake of learning.
A counterpoint to that could be, once you get your TI 84 and you no longer have to spend mental effort on doing long division, I would argue that opens the door to doing more advanced things much more easily.
Like how we were talking about people who don't have to go through the effort of learning basic programming, but it means that they can do more advanced work in whatever field they're working in.
Totally.
I mean, one of the things that I really worked hard at and struggled with at CHOP was to teach biomedical researchers the basics and even the advanced methods of data science. So data manipulation and basic statistical analysis, in particular of real world data. Because if you're relying on, Jane or Joe over there, who's the only person who can do that for you, that's a bottleneck. That's a bottleneck. Science goes more slowly when you've got to go to the expert, the single expert. Now, at the same time, you want that single expert in place because they could tell you that, the statistical test you've chosen is baloney.
Right.
Yeah. I think one of you said you have class at 11.
Yeah, I do. I'm packing up.
All right, we're going to wrap up then because we're at 20 minutes and these are short and sweet. Oscar, this has been super helpful, and maybe we'll ask you to come back on, or if you have something you think of that you want to share, love to have you come back on.
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
I know that this seems like a no-brainer to you guys because just in your natural student work lives, you're picking up the latest tool that came along, but there are a lot of people out there who like, they're just not living that way. And so it's good for them to hear and understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Good to hear from you, Oscar. Miss you.
Yeah. You too.
Everything's good.
All right. I'm going to play us out.
All right,
guys. Thanks so much.
There are ones and zeros, vectors and scalars. What do you see in that machine? I gave you my heart, my warmth, and Snapchat. You chose a robot.